Breaking right now on Morning News Now, an unprecedented exit less than 4 months before Election Day. President Biden dropping his bid for a second term, writing, quote, "Well, it has been my intention to seek re-election. I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." Now, Mr. Biden is endorsing his Vice President Kamala Harris to replace him as the Democratic nominee. The earth-shattering announcement ending weeks of pressure from his own party to step down.
I was so deeply moved by the president's powerful and poignant statement. Vice President Harris is at the top of my list.
There's no time for bitterness, man. We have got to unite behind this ticket with Kamala Harris at the helm.
And I think she has a very good chance of defeating Donald Trump.
Meanwhile, support is growing for Donald Trump, fresh from the GOP convention and just 9 days after an assassination attempt. The Trump campaign saying it doesn't matter who's he's running against as the names of more possible contenders emerge. All this marking the likely end to half a century of public service for President Biden and a poignant moment in history for all Americans.
I think he made a choice for the country, and I'm in favor of it.
I don't love the idea of Kamala being the new endorsement. I am a Biden voter. I feel very disheartened and nervous.
Good morning. Good to have you with us on a busy Monday. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Christine Romans in for Savannah Sellers this morning. We have a team covering it all, from Biden's announcement and endorsement to reaction from Capitol Hill and the Trump campaign and how it could reshape the November election. Let's begin with NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli joining us now from Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Mike, good morning. So the president was under relentless pressure from within his own party to step aside ever since that debate more than 3 weeks ago. It seems like eons ago. So what do we know about why and when President Biden decided to drop out of the race? Walk us through how we got to this point now with just 106 days to Election Day.
It's really incredible, Joe. And to go all the way back, President Biden's career in Democratic politics began 54 years ago when he ran for a county council seat here in Delaware, Newcastle County. He then ran for the Senate, won an upset victory 2 years later, 1972, becoming one of the youngest senators ever. In 2020, he realized a lifelong dream, becoming the nation's oldest president, finally reaching the Oval Office. But he had fully intended to run for a second term, to serve that second term, and to win that second term. But everything changed on June 27th with that very first question in that first debate against Donald Trump. President Biden, for the 25 days since, has fought relentlessly to try to stay in this race, to try to convince fellow party members that he could still do the job. But the pressure kept building intensely, even leading to some friction, real friction between him and even most senior leaders in his party, former President Obama, former Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Ultimately, the president sat down with his closest aides, the inner circle, over the weekend here in Rehoboth Beach. Saturday night, his closest advisors presented him with polling information about fundraising, literally everything, as one of them put it to me. And the president at that point made the decision that he was going to step aside. It was held in the closest of ranks until just moments before it was announced on Twitter yesterday he was stepping aside, and soon after making that endorsement, Vice President Harris to succeed him.
That was pretty quick. Right after he said he was stepping aside, he endorsed Vice President Harris. At this point, she's not the nominee, but how important was it for him to throw his support behind her, even if not all Democrats are on board yet, with Harris potentially at the top of the ticket?
Well, since there was so much conversation in the final 48 hours about what the handoff process would look like, would the president endorse the vice president? There was some pressure on him not to do that, including from some other leaders who want to see an open process for other people to come and step forward. But there was also counter pressure from some of the president's closest political supporters. You'll remember he won the nomination in part because of his strong victory in South Carolina. Whose victory he believed helped win him that? Jim Clyburn, the congressman from South Carolina. That was something that President Biden felt truly to his core, that just as he felt spurned in 2016 when he wanted to run for president and he didn't have the support of President Obama, he had to return the favor now and make sure his vice president had his full support going forward.
So, Mike, a source familiar with the campaign says the president and vice president did speak several times ahead of that announcement yesterday. How did Vice President Harris spend the rest of her day after the news broke? And considering we know the president's recovering from COVID, but when might we see either of them in the wake of this huge decision?
Well, as you say, the president and vice president spoke multiple times yesterday, even before that circle expanded to let others know about the president's decision. The vice president was at the Naval Observatory, the vice president's residence in Washington, surrounded by her close advisors as well as members of her family. She made more than 100 calls, we're told, to other party leaders, including faith leaders, labor leaders, elected officials, to try to make sure that it was known to them and very clear to them that she intended to earn their support. She wasn't going to count on that. Among those she called was her pastor. She was wearing her Howard University hooded sweatshirt, we're told. She was making those calls into the evening. Now, we are going to see the vice president today at the White House on the South Lawn. It was a previously scheduled event that President Biden was supposed to headline, honoring the champions from college athletics across the country on the South Lawn of the White House. Because the president has COVID, it is the vice president who will fill in for him there. This will be the first opportunity we all have to see her now as the likely new Democratic nominee.
Mike Memoli, you have covered President Biden for years. No one better to be speaking with this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
now let's bring in NBC News senior national politics reporter Jonathan Allen. John, good morning. You know, President Biden came to this decision, more than 3 weeks after that debate performance against former President Trump. Walk us through your reporting with fellow colleagues behind this historic decision. I mean, what do we know about how the last few days unfolded for the president?
Yeah, I mean, the president was feeling the pressure as his former chief of staff, Ron Klain, told us last week. Going into this weekend, he understood that there were a lot of people who wanted him to get out. In fact, some of them had told him in no uncertain terms that they wanted him to exit this race. So he goes to Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, to his vacation home there. He has COVID. So it's a very small group that's around him, including, some family members, particularly First Lady Jill Biden, and then some very trusted aides, Mike Donald and Steve Ricchetti, Annie Tomasini, and Anthony Bernal. And he continues to have conversations on Saturday with them. We know he had some phone calls. CNBC colleagues reported that Nancy Pelosi spoke to him, the former Speaker of the House, on Saturday. And then, as Mike Memoli just told us, he basically started to come to this decision on Saturday, perhaps the last Democratic insider to conclude that there was no path forward to him. He is frustrated, isolated in Delaware, angry at a party that turned on him, and still, grudgingly accepting by Saturday night that there really wasn't any way to sort of stop the bleeding of the Democratic Party turning on him.
John, was there any single data point or poll or any event that sort of was the final straw for him? I mean, there's conventional political wisdom that there was this Michigan poll out Sunday morning that showed him down 7 points there.
Yeah, I don't think it was one piece of data. I mean, I don't think any president, anybody who's looking to run for re-election would look at, a single poll and say, that's it, I'm done. I think it just took a long time. It was a little bit of a slow boil for him to get to the point where he realized that he wasn't going to weather the storm, that this was not going to pass as a news story, that Democrats weren't going to stop calling for him to exit. There was sort of a drip, drip, drip of his fellow Democrats doing that, and the opposite of the drip, 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 which is the donors turning off the spigot to his campaign. So there was not going to be enough money to run against Donald Trump. All of these things, I think, just kind of combined, and he knew he didn't have much time to make a decision. In order to allow his successor, and he obviously has endorsed Kamala Harris, to have a shot at Trump.
John, you and I spoke the morning after the debate when you reported people were already saying he needed to throw in the towel. So the towel has now been thrown. So let's talk about what's next for Democrats. Their national convention begins 4 weeks from today in Chicago. Even with the president's backing, we have to keep in mind, VP Harris says she intends to, quote, earn and win the nomination. She has to do that. How will she do that? How is it going to work?
I mean, what else? What else would she say, Joe? And by the way, thank you for remembering that reporting from 25 days ago, 26 days ago. It's been a heck of a stretch in politics. Look, I think that first of all, the Democratic Party has not yet fully agreed on how their nomination process is going to work this time. They had decided to do a virtual roll call before their convention to do the nomination of the presidential candidate. So we're going to find out a little bit more about that this week. The Democratic Party's, the Democratic Convention's Rules Committee is supposed to meet. So we don't know exactly what that's going to look like. But let me just step back for 1 minute here. There's nobody who would challenge Kamala Harris who would have any legitimacy or chance of winning a nomination over her who's going to run. We've already heard those people endorse her, maybe one or two exceptions of the people who are at the top of the list who have yet to endorse her. We've seen endorsements from enough people at the top of the Democratic Party to believe that there's not really going to be a choice for delegates. So she's going to say that she needs to earn the nomination. But this process is going to be pretty fast-tracked for two reasons. Number one, the party can do that, can fast-track the process a little bit. But even more important, she's got the support she needs.
So you don't think somebody emerges on the sidelines here and challenges her?
I don't. I've always thought that and look, I could be wrong, but I've always thought that the end result of this was going to be that Democrats landed on Kamala Harris. And the question was always, how long will it take? Will it be ugly in between, a Biden exit and Harris being nominated? But it's hard to see how that gets denied to her unless she does something the next couple of days, publicly that is like Biden in the debate. I mean, she's on a track to get this.
Right, John says it won't be ugly. It will not be an ugly political landscape. Thank you, John. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, John. Let's take a deeper look at the possibilities for the Democratic ticket this November. Bring in NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray. Mark. So, assuming it is going to be VP Harris, we don't know that yet, but as John indicates, unlikely there's going to be much of a competition here. What does the polling tell us about a possible matchup between former President Trump and the current VP?
So, Joe, all we end up having are the hypothetical polls that were conducted before yesterday's big news. And the polling ended up showing that Vice President Kamala Harris was running about the same as President Joe Biden against Donald Trump. Our own NBC national poll had Biden trailing by 2 points nationally. It also had Harris trailing by 2 points nationally. And the Fox News poll and others have shown that similar dynamic. Now, there are some polls, both national and battlegrounds, that show Harris performing maybe 1 or 2 points better against Donald Trump. And do remember that 1 or 2 points it could end up being decisive in a presidential contest. It's also worth noting that the numbers could change after yesterday's very big news. And so we need to keep that in mind. But we also need to brace ourselves for the possibility that this race today and over the next 106 days is very similar to the ones that we were covering before yesterday's big news.
Mark, how important will the running mate be for Vice President Harris or the vice presidential running mate for the presidential candidate, Kamala Harris?
Who is now a VP.
Who is now a VP. How might it fit the profile in terms of current job, position, state? Build for us, I guess, the ideal vice presidential nominee.
So, Christine, we're about to embark on a humongous story over the next 4 weeks heading into the Democratic convention on who will that running mate end up being for Vice President Kamala Harris. And oftentimes, historically, the vice president doesn't matter all that much. 1960, LBJ certainly helped out the Kennedy ticket in a state like Texas. And so getting someone who ends up coming from one of the battleground states could end up be important. Also, someone who ends up balancing out Vice President Harris's strengths and weaknesses. And do note that, in this race, Kamala Harris isn't the incumbent. She is a vice president. And so someone who she ends up saying that this person will be able to help me govern, I think could be a big story and a bigger vice presidential pick than we've had in the past.
Mark, let's put some names to the profile. You've got Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro. You got Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, who's a two-term governor in a red state. You've got Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, who, like Harris, made that run for the White House in 2020, or someone like Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a state the Democrats really need to win. What could any of them offer?
So let's kind of put them in different buckets, Joe. One are the battleground state folks. As you mentioned, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania being in a really important battleground state. Similarly, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, another key battleground state. Another battleground person is Senator Mark Kelly, the senator from Arizona. And, you know, just like, as I mentioned in 1960, getting a vice presidential pick who you know could help you in one state could end up being very, very important. Joe, you also mentioned Pete Buttigieg, one of the stars from the Biden cabinet and one of Kamala Harris's 2020 rivals. And then there are some other 2028 names like Governor Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, the governor from Illinois, and sometimes into having a vice presidential pick to make sure that they're on your team come 2028 if Kamala Harris is able to be the nominee and win this contest 100 plus days from now.
One step at a time. Mark Murray, appreciate your analysis this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Let's get more reaction this morning to President Biden ending his reelection bid from Democratic Congressman from Rhode Island, Gabe Amo. Congressman Amo previously worked in both the Biden and Obama administrations. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You worked for the president before you were elected to Congress. I wonder what you imagine the last 3 weeks or so have been like for him and how difficult this decision was for him to make.
Well, good morning, and thanks so much for having me. You know, I think it's been a period of reflection, a reflection on so much of the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris White House and administration, and also a reflection on all of the work that needs to come ahead. And so I was personally touched by the president's patriotic decision to put country over self and to make sure that we can secure a future that prevents Donald Trump from getting to the Oval Office and hopefully elevates Vice President Kamala Harris to the presidency.
So you, along with many other Democrats, are already endorsing Vice President Harris to replace President Biden as the Democratic candidate. Recent polls do show her polling, as we just discussed, around the same level as Mr. Biden, maybe slightly better. With that in mind, do you think she has a better chance of beating former President Trump? And one thing that immediately comes to mind is thinking of the fact that black voters were so important to President Biden winning in 2020. There's been a lot of information, a lot of polling telling us he doesn't have as strong a support this time around. Same with young voters. Does that change with Vice President Harris at the top of the ticket?
Well, look, I think polls are a snapshot in time, and they're about possibilities. Now, hopefully, when the vice president earns and wins the nomination, that is going to be a reality. And I do think the numbers will reflect that because she brings a great amount of preparation and a great amount of positioning to be an effective nominee. She has a foreign policy background. She has led on critical issues at the White House on reproductive freedom and gun rights. And she is going to present to the ultimate contrast, the prosecutor versus the felon. And you're going to hear it over and over again because it's true. And that is Donald Trump's worst nightmare.
There are other Democrats who have stopped short of endorsing Vice President Harris, most notably former President Obama, who you also previously worked for. He said he has, quote, confidence that the leaders of our party will be able to create a process from which an outstanding nominee emerges. Were you disappointed that he didn't immediately throw his weight behind her?
No, look, President Obama is revered and is a party leader, and he believes in us having an open process. And we are going to have an open process as Democrats. Others will have the opportunity to put their names forward. But to me, the choice is clear. The vice president is well positioned because she has worked hand in glove with President Biden to deliver on the promise of all of the great historic legislation that has come through and the real work that we have to do to continue to invest in the American people. So I look forward to President Obama's voice as part of this dialogue. But I believe we will come together and come out stronger with Vice President Harris as our nominee.
Congressman Amo, so nice to see you this morning. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Former President Trump quickly spoke out yesterday, calling Mr. Biden the worst president in U.S. history, criticizing him for border and immigration issues and his energy policies. Well, now the Trump campaign will have to rework its strategy based on whoever is chosen as Mr. Biden's replacement. NBC's Garrett Hake joins us now with more about the Trump campaign. Garrett, you spoke with Trump yesterday. What else did he have to say?
You know, Joe, I got the sense he was having a hard time making the pivot to potentially going after Vice President Harris as his new opponent. He spent most of our conversation attacking Joe Biden, as you said, calling him the worst president in U.S. history, suggesting he would undo that damage, and that he said President Biden basically should never have run. He should have stayed in his basement. I think not the kind of thing you would expect, perhaps, from a candidate who now realizes after 600 days running against Joe Biden, he's got to run against somebody else.
Yeah, so how does his strategy, I guess, change from here going out? I mean, does he still continue to attack the economy and energy policy and try to put Kamala Harris's face on it?
Yeah, look, I think the issue sets here are going to stay largely the same. I think you're going to hear a heavy focus on immigration. You're already seeing it from Republicans reminding folks that Kamala Harris was put in charge of, you know, in the actual reality, what's called the root causes of immigration. The way Republicans describe it is that she was made the border czar and failed to stop illegal immigration at the southern border. Expect to hear a lot about that. Expect to hear questions about why she didn't do more to, you know, fight inflation or kind of pick your Biden policy and attack Kamala Harris to it. I think you're also going to hear a lot about her as a San Francisco liberal, her background as a prosecutor back in California. It's the kind of coded language that can work to fire up Republicans to vote against somebody they may not know as much about.
So, Garrett, we know that Trump held his first campaign rally this weekend since the assassination attempt, his first rally since choosing his running mate, J.D. Vance. What was the atmosphere like? We know the Republicans were united last week. Did we hear anything new about the message to voters?
Yeah, a couple things interesting about this rally, Joe. First of all, it was completely indoors, which I think is what we're going to see from the Trump campaign going forward. I'd be very surprised if we ever saw another large outdoor rally from Donald Trump or his running mate ever again. My colleagues who were in the room said this was some of the most positive energy they had ever heard at a Trump rally. A lot less in terms of the crowd, the sense of kind of grievance and anger, frustration at the media that we so often hear. The bottom line is Republicans left their convention in Milwaukee last week feeling incredibly united and more or less locked in that they were going to win this race. Obviously, it's a totally different race this morning, Joe, and I'll be very curious to see what the trail is like today with J.D. Vance campaigning in Ohio and in Virginia, a state that the Republican ticket hoped to put in play against Joe Biden. Whether it's still on the table against Kamala Harris is one of those mysteries we're going to be trying to solve over the next couple of weeks.
So many questions about what this change does to those battleground states. All right, Garrett, thank you so much.
All right, let's turn to Capitol Hill to get a sense of the broader political reaction from both Republicans and Democrats to President Biden's decision to drop his re-election campaign.
Well, Democrats are praising his decision, calling it historic and patriotic. Republicans are once again seizing the opportunity. They're calling out the president's apparent decline and questioning his ability to lead the country.
NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ali Vitale joins us this morning with the latest reactions from lawmakers on the Hill. Good morning. It's been more than 3 weeks for Democrats, tumultuous weeks for Democrats following that debate. However, President Biden's decision to leave this race has now been met with a fresh wave of support and optimism from some in his party, many of whom have been calling for him to step aside. What have we heard from Democrats in the wake of this, I guess, this political shock this weekend?
A political shock this weekend, but I'll tell you, on Capitol Hill, we have felt every single hour of every single one of those days that have elapsed from that June 27th debate all the way up until yesterday's decision. And I think those shockwaves are still making their way through the Capitol, where lawmakers are finally going to be back in town today. So I'm sure they're going to have a lot to say on this. But look, most Democrats are doing exactly what Congressman Amo just did, which is say that they appreciate Biden's years of service, point to the legislative accomplishments that he led them in passing over the course of the last several years. And then, of course, in most cases, throwing their weight behind Kamala Harris. Of course, there are some notable exceptions. For example, we haven't heard from leadership in an official capacity on this, but that also could have a few different explanations, which I know we can get into. On the other hand, we are watching some Democrats say that they regret this process had to play out at all. Those voices are, of course, a smaller percentage of the larger Democratic apparatus, where I would tell you most of them are coalescing behind Kamala Harris in a way that I, as someone who's covered her for years, haven't seen and didn't think we would.
Ali, let's talk about the Republican side here. Many lawmakers, including House Speaker Mike Johnson, are demanding that President Biden resign, saying if he's not fit to run for president, he's not fit to serve out the rest of his term. Clearly, this is politics at play here, but what more can you tell us about the GOP reaction?
politics at play in Washington.
Yeah, imagine that.
Of course it is, Joe. You're right to point it out. But this is, I think, always where it was going to go on the Republican side of this. And we watched Garrett lay out the way that the Trump campaign has been putting the stakes around this. But for Republicans on Capitol Hill, the idea that they are now saying that Biden should not be able to finish out his term is sort of where we anticipated this going. And it's also why you saw many Democrats in their statements, even when they were calling for Biden to step down, they made very clear that this was a political concern, not a medical concern, in large part because they didn't want their Republican colleagues or for Democrats to have to be put in the position of saying, we think that Biden can serve his term, but not continue to run for re-election. So this has always been a political question. Nevertheless, Republicans drawing that line from a poor debate performance to something deeper and saying that's why Biden should step down. I think those calls, I think we can all agree, are going to fall on deaf ears. But that's where the Republicans are, at least on the Hill side of this, as the Trump campaign and other Republicans try to play the political campaign side of it.
Allie, I think you're the perfect person to ask this next question about the road ahead for Vice President Harris as a female candidate, because you literally wrote the book. You wrote the book on this. It's called Electable: Why America Hasn't Put a Woman in the White House Yet. VP Harris has already broken a bunch of major, boundaries as a woman in American politics. But what can you tell us about the obstacles she still has to overcome in 2024?
That yet is really doing a lot of work in the last 24 hours, I have to tell you. And I have heard the outreach from people who have reread parts of the book, especially the chapters where I detail what it was like to be on the campaign trail with Kamala Harris. There were real moments of sexism. There were real moments of racism. Certainly all of those things combine to kind of lend an idea of why we saw the first few years of her vice presidency be so tumultuous. There were some of the criticisms of her during that time, especially when she was dealing with the U.S.-Mexico border. People didn't think she was up to that task. Of course, that is one of the most vexing issues in American politics. Her allies would have told you that. And so I really spent a lot of time parsing through the way we make sense of someone like Vice President Kamala Harris, who is both historic in being the first Black woman and woman of color in the vice presidential role, but also then having to adhere to all of the norms that came before her, that a vice president is largely just another vessel for the president of the United States. If they are stepping outside of those lines, they're not doing a good job. And I think Kamala Harris did the best job of that over the course of the last few weeks, being loyal, being steadfast, certainly not doing anything publicly or privately to get in front of her boss. But I think the one thing that Harris has, and this is both, I think, the blessing and the curse of being in this moment as the vice president who's now thrust into the spotlight, is the one thing she has to carry that President Biden never did, is the barrier of covering the imagination gap for the American people. People need to imagine that a woman can actually be in the White House. The blessing to this is that lends some historic energy behind it. You're seeing it in the fundraising. The negative to that is that people can be scared off by things that they haven't seen be successful before. The entire metric of electability was a big part of why the women who ran in 2020, including Harris, never fully got their shot at getting that nomination. Of course, for Harris, she had a lot of other problems, a campaign that was really chaotic. It never really got off the ground. She herself struggled with major policy points, but many of her allies would say that those years in the White House on really one of the biggest stages you could possibly be on have been a chance for her to get better, have been a chance for her to grow. And you see that now as the news cycle has turned to a moment where abortion access and Black maternal mortality, all of these key issues, democracy, small d democracy, all of these issues are now squarely in the wheelhouse of the vice president. It's why her allies feel she is perfectly matched for this moment.
Ali Vitale, thank you so much. 106 days to go.
No one's counting. We're all counting.
Nice to see you.
Much more to come here on Morning News Now as our coverage continues on President Biden's historic exit from the 2024 race.
Later this hour, we'll look back on his 5 decades of public service leading up to his time in the White House. Up first, after the break, we'll have more reaction from around the world and the potential impacts on conflicts overseas. Plus,
all right, it's a new work week, and we are looking at the chance for new storms and showers. No surprise there. Also tracking dangerous heat in the west. We're going to see temperatures into the 90s and 100s. I'll have your full forecast coming up.
We're back now with global reaction to President Biden's historic decision to not seek a second term, a seismic decision that comes less than 4 months from Election Day. NBC News International correspondent Claudio Luvanga is in Rome. Joins us with more on this. Claudio, good morning. Give us a sense of how world leaders are reacting to this news that President Biden is stepping aside.
Good morning, Joe. Well, let's start here in Italy, where the foreign minister Antonio Tajani said that Italy will work well with whoever is chosen as president, because he said that the strong relationship between this country and the United States does not depend directly on the president or the president's party. Let's go to Canada, where Justin Trudeau said, and I read, "I've known President Biden for years. He's a great man, and everything he does is guided by his love for his country. As president, he is a partner to Canadians and a true friend to President Biden." And the First Lady, Justin Trudeau, said, "Thank you." Now let's come back here to the country, to Europe, where a lot of European leaders have paid tribute to President Biden, including Olaf Scholz, who's the German chancellor, who said that Joe Biden has achieved a great deal for his country, for Europe, and for the world. And let's end this little tour of the world with reactions from Japan, where Fumio Kishida said, "I recognize that President Biden made the decision from the standpoint of what was best politically. Needless to say," he said, "the Japan-US alliance is the pillar of Japan's diplomacy and security, so we'll closely watch the future developments." Joe.
Claudia, one piece of President Biden's legacy when it comes to foreign policy, of course, is his support for the war in Ukraine, providing billions in munitions and financial support. Have we heard any kind of response either from Russia or Ukraine this morning?
Well, we heard the response from both, Christine. Well, now, as I mentioned earlier, the Italian foreign minister said that the relationship between Italy and the United States doesn't depend on who the next president of the United States is. But when it comes to Ukraine, it really does make a difference, of course. And so Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, paid tribute to President Biden. He thanked him for the unwavering support that he's given Ukraine since Russia's invasion. And he said that many strong decisions have been made in recent years, and they will be remembered as bold steps taken by President Biden in response to challenging times. And we respect today's tough but strong decision, and we will always be thankful for President Biden's leadership. Now, across the border into Russia, Dmitry Peskov, the spokesperson for the Kremlin, said that 4 months before the election is a long time, that a lot can change by then. But he also said that Russians need to pay attention, monitor what will happen next, and mind our own business. But staying in Russia, not everyone there was so careful with words. For instance, the speaker of the lower house, whose name is Vyacheslav Volodin, was a lot less careful, and he told state media that Biden created problems all over the world and accused him of unleashing war in Ukraine. And now he said he runs away without waiting for the elections. Christine.
All right, Claudio, thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Turning now to your Morning News Now forecast, the West Coast bracing for another round of thermometer-busting temperatures.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman is with us with the forecast. Michelle, good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, we're going to see temperatures soaring into the 80s, the 90s. So we have heat alerts for portions of the interior Northwest, Central California, into the Great Basin. We have 24 million Americans impacted by this heat, and this is going to last for a couple days. We had it over the weekend as well. So we're looking at temperatures well above normal for this time of year. Notice into the triple digits in many spots in the West. We're looking at Spokane, 100 degrees. That is 14 degrees above normal, into the triple digits in Las Vegas, 110 today, 103 in Tucson, 107 in Chico. We're a little bit cooler in the middle of the country, although this heat is going to move towards the east as we head throughout the next couple of days. That heat stays in place in the west tomorrow. Lots of triple digits still on the map tomorrow. We're looking at Boise, 103. Temperatures in Billings, 100 degrees. Phoenix, 111 tomorrow. That's 6 degrees above average. And Bakersfield and Chico looking at temperatures right around 108 degrees. We'll keep that heat in place as we go throughout the later part of the week. So now we're talking Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, still well into the triple digits in Las Vegas. Same thing in Tucson. Temperatures into right around 104 on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then notice that heat a little bit further to the east as well. Albuquerque, we're into the low 90s as we head towards Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. That's one of the bigger weather stories today. We're also tracking summer-like storms throughout the country. We have a long stretching cold front. It's stretching really from the southwest through the south central states to the Tennessee Valley, the mid-Atlantic. So look at all this green on the map today. That's where we're expecting rain to fall. We're not expecting widespread severe weather, which is good news. but still could see some gusty thunderstorms, could see some tropical downpours in many spots. That's going to lead to flooding, and that's the second headline as we go throughout the day today. We are looking at the chance for flash flooding, as I mentioned, especially in parts of the south central states. Notice the southwest to the Four Corners. We're looking at that darker blue. That's because we're looking at monsoonal moisture. We're going to see that today, also tomorrow and Wednesday, and then we're looking at additional rainfall as we go throughout tomorrow into Wednesday. Locally, up to 3 inches is expected in portions of the south central states. And guys, this will be the story over the next several days. We have rain in the forecast for much of the east as we head towards Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Back to you.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much.
All right, coming up, shockwaves in Washington and beyond after President Biden ends his re-election campaign and endorses Vice President Harris.
Our breaking news coverage continues with reaction from voters, plus more on VP Harris's rise from California prosecutor to a potential presidential nominee. We're watching Morning News Now.
We're back with our top story this morning. President Biden announcing yesterday he will drop his re-election bid and endorse Vice President Harris to be the Democratic nominee. There's been plenty of reaction to this historic news, but there's one group we haven't heard from yet this morning, the voters who will pick the next president. Here's a bit of how they're feeling about Sunday's political earthquake.
I am excited for a much younger candidate. I think myself and others, we're kind of losing faith in Joe Biden's ability to serve another 4 years.
Honestly, I wasn't surprised. I honestly found out before all the news sources came out because I saw his Instagram. I think she's a little inexperienced, but I trust her. And she's more on the liberal side, and I'm more liberal than moderate, so I think she really represents me well.
So what's your reaction to Joe Biden stepping down?
I thought he would have been I thought he was going to be a caretaker to begin with. The Democrats would have had one of their bench players come up to play first string this year. Letting the next generation take over is a good thing.
I'm pretty excited about it. As weird as that sounds, I'm excited about it. I think it's about time. Truthfully, he was, he's obviously very rapidly declining in more ways than one. So I'm excited about it. I'm a little scared, a little concerned to see what's to come, but it's exciting, I would say.
Trump's probably going to win, more than likely. Yeah, they can put Kamala Harris in the lead position, but I don't think the world's ready for a female president yet, just because they're trying to just put a Band-Aid on it, oh, you know what, Joe can't do it, let's just put Kamala in it. No.
Do you think America is ready to elect a woman?
Absolutely, why not? I don't see why not. If America is ready for a felon, a convicted felon, why would they not go for a woman or a person of color? Why not?
I thought he was the best choice to lead our country, but I do support his decision and his endorsement for Kamala Harris.
I was actually very excited. Just the thought of her just becoming president, especially being from Howard and being the first black woman president, potentially, it was just very exciting for me.
Variety of reactions from all around the country. Let's bring in Simone Sanders Townsend for more on this. She's the co-host of The Weekend on MSNBC, also the former chief spokesperson for Vice President Harris. No one better to talk with. Simone, good morning. So given your previous role, you have some insight into how the vice president thinks. Walk us through this moment for her. It's now her second time running for the White House. How does this compare to 2020? What do you think is going through her mind right now?
Good morning, guys. Look, I think this is very different than the 2020 race, right? In 2020, or actually 2019, because she ran for president in her own campaign prior to Joe Biden selecting her as his running mate. In the middle of COVID-19, she was a sitting United States senator at the time. Now, fast forward 4 years later, she has been actually doing the job and the work in the White House with the president. And so I think that this is going to be a very, very, very just different experience. Chief among them, that is, we have this conversation, we're 106 days away from Election Day, and even less than that until people actually start voting. And so this is not going to be a campaign where you see wholesale changes, right? There is an infrastructure that is in place, and it's my understanding that the vice president intends to use that infrastructure. But truly, unprecedented times we're living through.
I mean, Simone, the age issue, which we know is a big issue for voters, now off the table for Democrats. Democrats. But now another issue comes to the surface more, racism and sexism. How worried are you about what we're going to see and hear, whether blatant or subtle, over the next 4 months? And how do you expect Vice President Harris is going to combat that?
Look, I think the racism and the sexism has, frankly, always been on the table. You know, Vice President Harris was on the ticket yesterday, the day before yesterday, and she's on the ticket today. Now the name has just changed, and instead of being number 2 on the ticket, she is number 1 on the ticket. But I think actually it would be not wise, if you will, for Democrats and also even voters to get caught up in the racism and the sexism. You know, when Donald Trump, in my opinion, and some of you know, the Republican Party apparatus, when they go out and they talk about the border as though that is the only thing that is happening, and the border is important to a number of Americans across the country, it is used as a distraction. And I think that Donald Trump is going to try to use racism and sexism as a distraction in this race. That doesn't mean it shouldn't be called out. Vice President Harris has been the first at many things that she has done, and so she is not new to the racism and the sexism. But the issues are going to be why people come out and vote and how they make their decision. And the Harris campaign should absolutely make sure that they stay focused on the issues. And you know, it's been my experience that she hasn't been rattled by what she would call the outside noise. She always wants to focus on the work, and they have 106 days to get that done.
Yeah. How much will President Biden's endorsement help the vice president in her effort to become the nominee and potentially run against Trump? Will she have to answer for some of the president's shortcomings? Is she going to have to, you know, take on the inflation mantle, for example?
Yeah, I think so. Look, it was the Biden-Harris campaign. Now it's the Harris with the question mark, whoever else is going to be on that ticket campaign. And she is going to run she's running as a incumbent, essentially. She is a part of the administration. And so absolutely, you have to own the inflation. You have to own the good as well as the not so good, right? The bad. I think the Harris campaign would say inflation's coming down. But folks across the country, they're going to take a hard look. The economy is still top of mind. Abortion for many people is an economic issue. She obviously has been leading on that, but it is going to be a close race, I would argue, guys, and it's going to be chock full of policy, also some unexpected twists and turns, because that's what 2024 has given us.
Yeah, unexpected
in this
twists,
election?
Turns, loops,
okay,
whatever else you want to say. Simone Sanders Townsend, good to have you with us this morning. Thank you so much.
Good to see you.
Coming up, continuing coverage of President Biden's exit from the 2024 race.
Up next, we'll take you to Wall Street for more on the potential effect of the announcement for investors. Plus, what happens next for Biden's campaign and all the cash that's been raised so far. You're watching Morning News Now. We're back with a look at what's making financial headlines and just how much impact President Biden's withdrawal from the 2024 race could affect investors and the market.
CNBC's Silvana now has that and other money headlines. Silvana, good morning.
Joe, Christine, good morning to you. Yes, so President Biden's exit from the race, well, this could prompt investors to unwind trades, betting a Republican victory in November would increase budget and inflationary pressures. The so-called Trump trade, which assumes the former president's tax policies will boost corporate profits while adding significantly to the deficit and increased tariffs, has gained ground since the Trump-Biden debate last month. And some analysts say the markets could also benefit from a higher chance of a divided government, with the Democrats either retaining control of the Senate or retaking the House. CrowdStrike says a significant number of devices impacted by the global tech outage on Friday have been restored. The cybersecurity company's faulty software update caused computers running Microsoft Windows to crash. Microsoft estimates the incident impacted 8.5 million devices. Banks, hospitals, and airlines, especially Delta and United, were among the worst hit businesses. CrowdStrike says it's deploying a new fix to speed up the recovery. And Delaware takes the top spot this year as the best state to retire. Bankrate's annual study, which is out today, ranks all 50 states on metrics important to retirees, including affordability, quality and cost of health care, and crime. Delaware has strong rankings for state and local sales taxes. Alaska is the worst state for the second straight year, and that's due to unfavorable ratings for affordability and health care, guys.
All right, Savannah, thank you so much. Nice to see you.
Delaware's in the headlines everywhere
Yeah,
this morning. All
right.
right. So the worlds of politics and money are colliding this morning. The Democrats' most recent donation numbers show they've raised $240 million, including about $96 million in the accounts held by the Biden-Harris campaign. That doesn't include the tens of millions raised since the announcement yesterday. Now that the president's no longer running for re-election, questions are swirling about what happens to all that cash. And thankfully, Christine is my co-anchor this morning, and you've been looking at the scenarios. First, let's start with how do the Biden and Trump campaigns compare when it comes to money? And if Vice President Harris does become the nominee, what happens to the money that Biden has raised? So
you've seen the Trump campaign out earning or out fundraising by just a little bit, really, here. It's a lot of money. I mean, money is the oxygen of politics, and these last 100 and some days are really important for the money. What we know is that if it is a Harris question mark ticket, that money just goes with her. That infrastructure just goes with her, and she can spend it in these important days. If she isn't on the ticket, then you have a situation where there are a lot of limits to what they can do. Maybe that huge pot of money can just go $2,000 to the next candidate, and it has to go to down ballot races or to Democratic committees and other kinds of places. So it's the cleanest thing for the campaign is to have a Harris question mark ticket. So, yeah, it is a big if it's not Biden and it's not Harris, then it's someone else. Right. But if that's the case, it's a totally different scenario then, right? Absolutely. It's only $2,000 can go. All right. So the nonprofit fundraising platform Act Blue says it's raised about $50 million in the hours since yesterday, since this announcement. Talk about that money, how significant that is. And we're told that is a record for the campaign period here. So that is a very big number. I mean, what you're hearing from a lot of the folks who watch this campaign finance folks and even people on Wall Street who are watching with great interest what's happening here, they're calling it a lightning bolt of energy. That's what that money raised tells you, that there's a lot of energy behind this change in the narrative, and the money follows the energy. And of course, we know that Democrats have seen a huge decrease in fundraising over the last few weeks since the debate, so this certainly changes that. Christine, thank you so much. Coming up, President Biden's exit from the 2024 race. It could mark the end of half a century of public service. Up next, we're going to look back on his long career in Washington that led him to the White House and the significance of his decision to drop his bid for re-election. Stay with us. This is Morning News Now. Welcome back. This morning, we're taking a closer look at the legacy President Biden will leave behind as our nation's leader. More than 14 million Americans voted for Mr. Biden in the primaries, yet he still couldn't overcome the calls and pressure to withdraw from the race. NBC News presidential historian Michael Beschloss joins us now with more on this. Good morning. It's so nice to see you, Michael. You know, this is the closest to an election a party's presumptive nominee is pulled out of the race. How will this decision go down in history here? 106 days to go. And what will the Biden presidency be best remembered for?
Well, you know, Joe Biden, as you both know, both you, Christine, and Joe, you know, most politicians, if they have power, they have a very hard time giving it up. And Joe Biden could have said this week, sorry, folks, I have these delegates. They're locked up. I can win the nomination. I think I'll do better in the fall. And I still think I can beat Donald Trump. A lot of people who would have been front runner to be Democratic nominee this year might have said that. And the result could have been that they could have taken their party down to defeat along with the House and Senate. Joe Biden did not do that. He's talked all through this presidency about his love of democracy. He feels democracy is in danger this fall. He felt that if he lost, we might lose it. And so therefore he did this very tough thing, which is to give up what you both have rightly said has been a more than half a century in political life. Michael, when we talk about legacy, let's also talk about Mr. Biden's time as vice president under President Obama. VPs don't often maybe make a lot of headlines, but Biden did. Talk about what he'll be remembered for most in that role. Well, he helped Barack Obama to get elected in 2008 because Barack Obama, as you both know, had briefly been in the United States Senate, had been a little longer time in the Illinois Senate. But Joe Biden, who had been for decades in national leadership, gave him the credibility of someone who had that kind of experience. And as well as the fact that there was balance of all sorts of obvious kinds on that ticket. And in retrospect, we now know that the result was that Biden was equipped to be a much better president than he would have been if he had not had that experience. Look at the legislative record of the last 4 years.
Let's talk about age in this election. That has been a focus here. Biden was once considered too young for office during his Senate days. Now he's considered too old. Put this discussion in perspective. How much has age been an issue in the presidential election down the years? And does now the age problem sit squarely on Donald Trump's shoulders?
It does. Age in this day and age, you're watching candidates on TV and in other venues. It's not like 1944, where Franklin Roosevelt was literally dying and managed to go for 50 miles in a cold rainstorm in New York just before the election to show how healthy he was. As it happened, he died a couple of months after he was inaugurated the following year. Nowadays, you see it. We saw it in the debate. Joe Biden takes nothing away from him, but he is obviously not what he was 16 years ago or perhaps even 4 years ago, and he has recognized that. It takes a great man to do so.
Michael, we have about a minute left here, but talk about, from your perspective, how President Biden's decision compares with LBJ's decision decades ago.
Well, LBJ pulled out, as you know, 31st of March, 1968. Wasn't as late in the year as this is, of course. Johnson had just about lost the New Hampshire primary. 2 days later, he was pretty sure he was going to lose the Wisconsin primary to a combination of Robert Kennedy and Eugene McCarthy. But he really pulled out because this was his way of saying, I feel so strongly about peace in Vietnam, I'm going to give up the presidency to pursue it. Now, as it turns out, like a very good politician, we now know, and I talked to Lady Bird, his wife, about this, that he hoped that if he made peace in Vietnam, that maybe his party would demand that he change his mind and run again for another term. Who knows? But that's politics.
Wow. Michael Beschloss, thank you so much. Nice to see you this morning.
Same. Thanks a lot, guys.
That is going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now. And good morning. I'm Christine Romans in for Savannah Sellers this morning.
And I'm Joe Fryer. We're going to begin with that historic announcement from the White House. With less than 4 months until Americans head to the polls, President Joe Biden says he will not seek re-election. The move follows weeks of pressure from fellow Democrats to step aside. In a statement, the president said, in part, quote, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. News sending shockwaves throughout the country.
It was a shock, but at the same time, they must feel it's best for the election.
I think he made a choice for the country, and I'm in favor of it.
The announcement marks the first time in nearly 60 years a sitting president announced he would not seek re-election. In a separate statement, Mr. Biden then endorsed his vice president, Kamala Harris, for the nomination as the party now scrambles to change course before next month's Democratic National Convention.
We'll put on full display our agenda for the American people and do what is necessary in order to leave that convention unified, get the job done, work as hard as we can, day after day, week after week, month after month, and be successful on November 5th.
We have team coverage of the president's historic announcement, from the fallout in Washington to what it means on the campaign trail. But there we go. Look at that.
Here.
Banner headlines.
The New York Times, Joe's out. All these headlines, history. People will be collecting. If people still get these newspapers, which we know not that many people do.
There have been more banner headlines in the last 25 days.
Exactly.
Right?
And so people will be collecting this and holding on to it.
All right, let's begin with NBC News Now anchor Hallie Jackson with the latest.
Hey there, good morning on what is now the first full day of Kamala Harris's presidential campaign after that move by President Biden that felt both stunning and in some ways inevitable after pressure built for him to step off the Democratic ticket. Now, the party is navigating a new path forward just 106 days before Election Day. New widespread reaction this morning to President Biden's decision to withdraw from the 2024 race.
I think he's one of the best public servants
we ever produced in this country.
All of it coming after the president's stunning statement Sunday, in which he wrote, in part, "While it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term." A short time later, endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris to take the top of the ticket.
I know he will play a central role in the campaign this fall to make sure that Donald Trump is not returned to the White House.
The decision coming as President Biden was home in Delaware, still recovering from COVID. According to multiple sources, the president spent the weekend reflecting on his path forward and considering polling he was presented, described by one person as bleak. He spoke with Harris multiple times Sunday before his announcement, according to a person familiar with the conversations, calling senior advisors at 1:45 p.m. and releasing his letter publicly just 1 minute later. The First Lady, according to an aide, supportive of whatever road he chose, with the president's son, Hunter, saying, "I'm so lucky every night I get to tell him I love him and to thank him. I ask all Americans to join me in doing the same." More than 30 elected Democrats had publicly called on the president to step aside after that debate performance in late June, widely panned as disastrous.
If we finally beat Medicare.
The president's tone since then, defiant.
But I'm only 3 years older than Trump, number one. And number two, my mental acuity's been pretty damn good.
But the political reality appearing to set in. Although the president 4 years ago argued his decades in the Senate helped make him the best choice for the White House, like in this interview with Savannah in Iowa.
One of the reasons I'm running is because of my experience. Who's going to be ready on day one?
This time around, voters raised concerns this campaign about the president's age and fitness for office, with recent polling showing 65% of Democrats wanted President Biden to withdraw from the ticket. And already this morning, we are hearing from the Harris, formerly Biden campaign, that they've raised nearly $50 million in grassroots donations since President Biden endorsed Vice President Harris. That is a record one-day haul. Back to you.
Allie, thank you.
All right, after President Biden endorsed Vice President Harris to replace him as the Democratic candidate, many other Democrats are now rallying behind her. NBC News senior White House correspondent Kelly O'Donnell has taken a closer look at Harris and the barriers she's already broken in her political career. Kelly, good morning.
Good morning. And all eyes will be on Vice President Harris today. That is for sure. And she will be here at the White House. And she's standing in for the president because of his COVID diagnosis. Harris will be leading an event that is celebrating college championship athletes. But everyone will be taking a different look at that now. It will have far more prominence. And a source familiar with Harris's plans tells me the vice president has told her staff she wants to figure out a way to talk to the campaign team directly. As the nation's first woman vice president, the words history-making and Kamala Harris have already been linked.
Let us see it through, because when we fight, we win.
Now suddenly poised to move to the top of the Democratic Party ticket.
The most existential, consequential, and important election of our lifetime. And there is so much at stake.
At 59, Harris represents a younger generation than President Biden and former President Trump. Her own story connecting her to a core base of the Democratic Party.
I'm black, yes, and I'm proud of being black.
Voters adjusting in real time.
I think Kamala is going to be strong and get things done.
Some still unsure.
She's been in the background, so I don't know how that's going to be. Very interesting.
Born in Oakland, California, educated at Howard University, the daughter of a black father and an Indian mother.
My mother used to say, don't sit around and complain about things, do something.
A prosecutor, state attorney general, and U.S. senator representing California. She married her husband, Doug Emhoff, in 2014. Harris made her own bid for the White House in 2020, but dropped out of that race before primary voting. Her campaign plagued with issues.
Let's do this together. Let's claim our future.
Serving alongside Joe Biden, Harris has at times been a magnet for criticism, especially after the president gave her responsibility for what they called the root causes of immigration.
We've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I mean, I don't understand the point that you're making. I'm not discounting the importance of the border.
Many Republicans made Harris a focus at their convention.
What has Joe Biden and Kamala Harris done?
Perhaps the greatest blame lies with his own Vice President, Kamala Harris.
Harris is often the administration's lead, prosecuting the case on abortion rights, an issue Democrats believe can help them in November.
How dare they tell a woman what she can do and cannot do with her own body? How dare they?
And sources tell me to expect Harris to put her own stamp on this reshaped campaign. And part of that can be tapping into her background as a prosecutor, expecting Harris to take on Trump on his criminal convictions on the issue of abortion rights. And another issue that has been so dominant this cycle, and that is age, but turning the focus to the former president, who is 78 years old. Right. Joe? Christine?
Kelly, thank you so much.
Well, let's bring in NBC's Garrett Haake for more on how the Trump campaign is reacting to all this. Garrett, good morning. So Senator J.D. Vance, the Republican vice presidential nominee, expected to hold his first solo campaign event in his hometown, Middletown, Ohio this afternoon before heading to a rally in Virginia, which seems to be a battleground state this year. Can we assume the attack messages on Harris begin in full force today? What's that going to look like?
I think that's probably right, Joe. I mean, look, we already heard a little bit from Vance going after Vice President Harris in the last couple of days, responding to the Biden campaign's attacks on him when he became the nominee. And the Trump campaign, I think, was caught perhaps a little bit flat-footed by this announcement, despite how possible it seemed over the last couple of weeks, mostly focused on attacking Joe Biden. They've started to pivot to going after Harris on border issues, like Kelly was just laying out, on basically trying to tie her to all the most unpopular items of the Biden administration, and to suggest that she was somehow complicit in covering up Joe Biden's mental decline over the last few weeks or months. We'll see how dexterous J.D. Vance is with advancing that argument today in his 2 campaign stops.
The Trump campaign has spent months attacking President Biden over his age and his mental capabilities. Now they have the oldest candidate by a long shot here. How will they get around that problem, and how will they switch their messaging in such a short time?
Yeah, look, I think this is going to be really interesting to watch because the old guy candidate is now Trump, not Joe Biden. Donald Trump would be the oldest candidate ever inaugurated should he win this election. And the spotlight will fall on him and on every perceived misstep or off statement or sign of any kind of decline going forward. I think you will see the Trump campaign try to use J.D. Vance, who's only 39 years old, to try to balance that out a little bit. And I suppose it's even possible you could see the Trump campaign adopt a version of the Biden argument that with age comes experience. Here you do have someone who's functionally an incumbent president, having served in the office before. They may try to use that as a defense. But again, this is just one of those things that I think is going to be very interesting to watch play out, where so many of the arguments that were baked in the 600-plus days where Donald Trump knew he was running against Joe Biden now go out the window.
Right.
So, Garrett, we just heard Senator Joe Manchin says he is not going to run. There are no other Democrats who've come forward saying they would challenge Vice President Harris. Is the Trump campaign pretty confident the Democratic nominee is going to be Harris? Is that what they're going to focus on now?
I think that's where they're going to start, Joe. I mean, I talked to a senior Trump campaign official just yesterday who suggested to me that they have contingency plans for other nominees, but there's no indication there will be another nominee. Joe Manchin loves to have people talking about Joe Manchin, but I don't think there's any serious indication he could pursue or would win a Democratic nomination, especially since he's now a registered independent. I think the Trump campaign is also looking very closely to see who Harris might pick as a vice president to join her on the ticket. Obviously, that debate hasn't been scheduled and probably can't be until we know who the participant would be on the Democratic side.
Yeah, you do need to have a person to debate. Critical. So, all right, Garrett Haake, thank you so much.
All right, let's now bring in NBC News national political correspondent Steve Kornacki from the big board for more on the state of the race. Steve, good morning. Thanks for joining us. If the election ends up ultimately becoming Harris v. Trump, what are the numbers telling you? And how does she poll against the former president on the national stage?
Yeah, the short answer is Democrats hoping that Kamala Harris turns this around for them. Right now, it's based on hope and not numbers, because if you see the head-to-head here, this is an average of every national poll taken since that debate last month that put all of these events into motion. And you see Trump 47, Harris 46 in this poll, in this average of polls. In the same average of polls with Joe Biden, it was Trump 47 and Joe Biden 45. So only the slightest of differences there between Trump and Harris, from a 2-point Trump lead to a 1-point Trump lead. And then you go a layer deeper and you see this. This is just the basic impression that voters have of the candidates when you're asked, Do you have a favorable view or an unfavorable view? And again, this is an average of polls here, recent polls. Joe Biden, we've been seeing numbers like this for a long time with Joe Biden. It wasn't just a debate effect. 36 favorable, 57 unfavorable. That's the kind of number that had Democrats in panic. But take a look. Kamala Harris, it really isn't much different from a 36% favorable for Biden to 38 for Kamala Harris. The unfavorable 57 down to 52, but still a majority unfavorable on both of them. Now, the Republican candidate, Donald Trump, he's not doing too well either on this. He is at 41% favorable, 55 unfavorable. But the bottom line is when you look at the national polling right now, and Democrats are hoping this changes with the introduction of Kamala Harris, the introduction of Kamala Harris as the presidential nominee. But when you look at the polling right now, Democrats with Harris are basically starting at the same place they left off with Biden.
Looks like people don't like politicians.
Yeah, overall, this is just not a good statement for Washington, but we've been seeing that for years now. Steve, as you know better than anyone, it's the Electoral College that matters. 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. There's some question now maybe Harris's road to getting that looks different than Biden's road looked. What does the road look like for the vice president if she ends up being the Democratic nominee?
Yeah, overall, pretty similar, but let's take a look here. We're going to be giving this thing a lot of use between now and November. You see now Harris, if she is the nominee, what we've got here, these are the 6 core battleground states: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. All 6 of these states went for Joe Biden in 2020. So been looking at them. The story with Biden has been that Biden was stronger, and I call them the Big 10 states, than he was down in the Sun Belt states. Why was that? It's because Donald Trump, in the matchups against Joe Biden all this time, Trump's improvement relative to 4 years ago had come from non-white voters. Younger, non-white voters skew more male than female. But you look at the demographics of these states. So Wisconsin is a very, very white state demographically. Georgia, a much more diverse state. Arizona, Nevada, much more diverse state. Trump's made particular gains, at least in the polling, among Hispanic voters. And one of the things that we found in our most recent NBC poll, it didn't show a big difference overall between how Harris and Biden would do against Trump. But she was running a little bit better than Biden among black voters. And so particularly a state like Georgia, this actually, of these 6, this is one of the worst states in terms of the polling for Joe Biden, one of his worst states in recent polling, but obviously a very large black population there. If Harris is able to improve on where Biden was there, that could improve her standing there relative to his. Of course, our polling also showed that some suburban voters, given a Harris-Trump matchup, said they were more likely to back Trump. A lot of suburbs around Atlanta, certainly around Phoenix. So the net effect here might end up being no big change to the overall map.
All right, Steve, we know you'll be test driving that map a lot in the coming days. Thanks so much.
We will keep the big board charged. We'll keep Steve charged as well. All right, we have a lot of news to get to this morning, including how that massive IT outage from last week caused headaches for air travelers all weekend and into this morning.
But first, the assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump will be front and center on Capitol Hill today as the director of the Secret Service prepares to face lawmakers. That story next. Welcome back. This morning on Capitol Hill, members of Congress will be looking for answers in the aftermath of the July 13th assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle is expected to be grilled by lawmakers when she testifies before the House Oversight Committee. NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now. Ryan?
Yeah, Christine, several members of Congress have already called on Kimberly Cheadle to resign as the director of the Secret Service, but she's resisted those calls so far. Today, though, she's going to be forced to answer some very direct questions about what went wrong and what it will take to prevent it from happening again.
From the moment the shots rang out in Butler, Pennsylvania, the questions started rolling in about the role of the United States Secret Service, the agency tasked with keeping presidents, former presidents, presidential candidates, and their families safe.
The oversight here, the mistakes, the ineptitude, whatever it is, was inexcusable. We almost lost the life of a former president.
The early investigation into the shooting reveals that there were key choices made by the service that led to the venue where Trump spoke less secure, including a decision to leave the roof where the shooter was perched from unguarded. In excerpts from her opening statement provided by the Department of Homeland Security, Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle will say, quote, "The Secret Service's solemn mission is to protect our nation's leaders. On July 13th, we failed. As the director of the United States Secret Service, I take full responsibility for any security lapse." Oversight Chairman James Comer is expected to call for Director Cheadle's resignation in today's hearing. Law enforcement investigators have discovered that the gunman, Thomas Crooks, flew a drone over the rally site hours before the attempted assassination. He also searched online about other mass shooters and explosives. The missing signs and a lack of resources leading members of Congress to demand a review of the Secret Service.
That shooter was identified as a suspect, suspicious character, a full 1 hour before the shooting occurred. They lost sight of him and never really followed up on that.
Congress will also press Director Cheadle on the security assistance provided to the Trump campaign. The day after the shooting, the Secret Service spokesperson wrote, "There's an untrue assertion that a member of the former president's team requested additional security resources and that those were rebuffed. This is absolutely false." This weekend, NBC News reporting the Secret Service denied requests for more Secret Service at Trump events before the attempted assassination. But those additional requests were not specifically connected to the rally.
And in an interview with Fox News, former President Trump is openly questioning why no one told him a suspicious person was identified an hour before he took the stage. Trump believes that he, along with his security team, could have chosen to wait to come on for at least a few minutes just as a precaution, and thinks withholding that information from him was a mistake. Yet another issue that could be raised at today's hearing. Christine?
I'm sure it will. All right, Ryan, thanks so much. Nice to see you.
Now to the latest on the massive global IT outage that impacted 911 call centers and hospitals, snarled travel, and impacted businesses worldwide.
It follows a tech update by cybersecurity giant CrowdStrike that has affected millions of Windows computers since Friday morning.
NBC News senior correspondent Tom Costello joins us now from Reagan Washington National Airport. So, Tom, I had to fly home at the last minute yesterday. I somehow did it. I somehow landed at 2:30 in the morning, but I can tell you, I was at MSP Airport last night at 9:30, 10 o'clock. Every gate was full.
Yeah.
A lot of people were going nowhere.
Yeah.
What's it looking like this morning?
So, and you know why? Because what is the dominant carrier at Minneapolis-St. Paul?
Delta.
Delta has struggled all weekend. It is still struggling at this hour. Recall what happened on Friday with this massive meltdown. CrowdStrike's software update brought down Windows-based computers, and the major airlines use Windows-based computers. We had 3,400 flight cancellations just on Friday alone. And look at the lines. They stretched for hours through airport checkpoints. So that was Friday. 12,000 delays, 3,400 flight cancellations. We had the domino effect through the weekend. Look at this on Saturday and Sunday. Again, still big problems through the weekend. Look at delays on Saturday, 9,100, Sunday, 10,000, and then cancellations, more than 2,000 both days. You're going to ask me, because you guys are intrepid reporters, what's it looking like right now? Well, I have the answer for you. We have 952 delays at this moment, and we have 760 cancellations. I'm glad you're not flying through MSP today, because we have Delta Airlines still struggling. I'm going to look down at my computer, and right now, 17% of Delta flights today are canceled still. And the most impacted airports are all Delta hubs: Atlanta, Minneapolis, Detroit, JFK. Delta CEO was out over the weekend apologizing and saying that this happened on the busiest travel weekend of the busiest summer travel season ever. And say, you know, Delta's usually the airline that really is on top of its game, rarely stumbles like this, but they are still struggling because of what has happened worldwide with this computer outage and how that's affected their operations in the United States. Yeah, there are the numbers right there. Look at that.
You make such a good point.
Delta is a major impact.
Every single day they're setting records for how many people are trying to fly, you know, and then this whole thing happens over the weekend. What's been the reaction from the Department of Transportation?
Yeah. Well, as you know, the Department of Transportation has been on the airlines for years to improve their customer service and react proactively and help customers and give them their money back if the flight's canceled or allow them to change their flights. And so the DOT over the weekend, Secretary Buttigieg had a conversation with Delta saying, I'm reminding you, you have legal obligations to your passengers. You've got to make sure that you treat them right. If you significantly delay or cancel a flight, you may have to give them food or vouchers for food. You may have to put them up in airport hotels. And he reiterated that message as the Delta CEO, Ed Bastian, again apologized and said, listen, this is really happening on the worst weekend of the busiest summer travel season ever. You know, it's almost, I hate the cliche, perfect storm. But oh my gosh, talk about a perfect storm in the summer, right? The one computer system used by most major airlines goes down on the busiest weekend of the busiest summer travel season in history. It really has been a struggle.
Yep. Tom, thank you so much. Appreciate your reporting as always.
Let's get a check on your morning News Now weather for the week ahead.
Meteorologist Michelle Grossman's tracking it all for us. Michelle, what can you tell us?
Hey guys, well, the good news is we are starting out relatively quiet on this Monday. We're not looking at tropical weather. It's really quiet in the tropics. We're not looking at severe weather as we go throughout the day, but we are looking at the chance for some summer showers and storms. And a lot of us will need the umbrella as we head out on this Monday. You can see lots of green on the map. That's showing where a cold front is. It's a long stretching front. It stretches really from the southwest to the south central states into the Tennessee Valley, parts of the southeast, the mid-Atlantic, and also the northeast. It's actually a pair of fronts because we do have another front that's stretching from the Great Lakes into the northeast. That's going to bring the chance for showers and storms. Some of these could be on the heavy side, so we could see some flooding with some of them, and that's going to stay in place over the next several days. That's the first weather story of the day. The second one is the heat. We're still continuing to bake in the west. We're looking at temperatures 15 degrees above normal for this time of year. That puts us into the 90s, into the triple digits in some spots, and that's mainly in parts of the interior parts of the Northwest, Central California, into the Great Basin. So I'll show you those numbers in just a minute. But notice by Wednesday, we still have lots of green on the map, even a little more yellow, indicating that we are expecting the chance for heavy rain. That's going to bring the chance for flooding, especially in the south central states along the Gulf Coast. But we have pockets of heavy rain expected throughout the mid-Atlantic, also the Carolinas on Wednesday as well. We're going to be dry in the middle of the country, sunny and seasonal temperatures in the 80s and 90s, and monsoon showers. That's going to be a problem today in the southwest, the Four Corners, into the Rockies. We're looking at monsoon showers, and that's going to bring the chance for flooding there as well, especially in burn areas. Now, by Friday, we're looking at the chance of that rain continuing, so that monsoonal moisture, kind of that tap is on all week long. Just keep that in mind as you head out and about this week, and still staying soggy throughout the south central states, into the Gulf Coast states, the southeast, into parts of the mid-Atlantic, the Carolinas, and also the Northeast. So a lot of this week, we will need the umbrella on hand as we head out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, even Friday. This is what radar looks like right now. You can see lots of little lightning strikes. So we're looking at pockets of heavy rain in some spots, pockets of showers and storms. Again, not looking at the chance for severe storms. We could see some pretty gusty thunderstorms, but not widespread severe weather. This is why. This is a cold front that I was talking about, sort of going to take its time, kind of lingering in place. So all along this front, we could see the trigger for some showers and storms. We could see some flooding too. That's going to be the biggest threat with any of these storms. By tomorrow, showers returning in the afternoon, rainfall rates of up to 2 inches per hour. It's a really soupy atmosphere. It's summer, so we're looking at those summer downpours as we go throughout tomorrow as well. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we could see locally up to 3 inches of rain by Tuesday, and we're going to see more as we head throughout the later part of the week this week. So guys, we're going to watch that. Then we're going to watch the temperatures in the 90s and 100s in the west as well. Back to you.
All right, Michelle, thank you so much. Nice to see you. We're staying on top of breaking news this morning. President Biden has withdrawn from his re-election bid.
We're going to have reaction from the campaign trail and what voters in swing states are saying about this historic announcement. That's next.
We're back with a reaction from voters to President Biden's announcement from the key battleground state of Michigan.
Just before Mr. Biden's exit, former President Donald Trump held a strong 7-point lead in that state, according to one poll.
NBC News correspondent Adrian Broaddus is in Kent County for us this morning. Good morning, Adrian. The Biden campaign has said that winning Michigan was critical to winning the 2024 election. So what have you heard from swing state voters so far following that shock announcement this weekend?
Hey, good morning to you, Christine. Voters here know their voice is critical and they want to be taken seriously. As you mentioned, Michigan was part of that blue wall, and had President Biden not won Michigan, his path to the White House might have not been as clear. When news broke that Biden was not seeking re-election, some people here in Kent County were left speechless. Others had a whole lot to say. We spoke with the young and mature voters. Here's more of our conversation.
I think it's a good thing that he stepped down and maybe someone else come in, a little younger, different idea, something, because it's not quite working right now.
I just think there's a lot of better candidates out there. It doesn't really, like, obviously I don't like the other guy, but I didn't really like him either, so I'm hoping that we'll just get some new people in there.
And on the flip side, one voter told me she's hopeful but terrified at the same time, wondering about the remaining months until we get to the November election, Christine.
So, Adrian, voters where you are in Kent County, they went with Trump in 2016, they went with Biden in 2020, so they're a pretty good measure of where the country goes. What are the top issues for voters there right now, and could this development change what's on their mind?
You know, people we talk to are concerned about everything that impacts their pocketbooks. So the price of eggs at the grocery store, inflation and the economy, as well as affordable housing and student loans. Now, at the macro level, they understand the president may not be able to lower the price of groceries in their hometown, but affordable health care is also something people are discussing here in Kent County.
What about Michigan's own Governor Gretchen Whitmer? She's been brought up as a potential replacement for Biden on the Democratic ticket in the past few weeks. What have you heard from voters about their views on her?
You know what? She has. We even heard from some Trump supporters who have a fascination with Governor Whitmer. She is beloved here, but voters that we heard from say there is a clear candidate already in place. They are hoping or hopeful, at least those on the Democratic side, that Kamala Harris will be the nominee, especially with the endorsement of President Biden. And I have to tell you, there was a rapid response when it comes to energizing voters. More than 40,000 black women gathered on a Zoom call last night to discuss issues and create voter engagement. Some members of the media were invited, myself included. And within 2 hours, less than 3 hours, that group raised more than $1 million for Kamala Harris. So it's obvious folks are energized and they're hopeful. If she is, in fact, the Democratic nominee, she will pick the perfect person for the path forward. Christine?
Certainly the narrative has changed very quickly here. Adrian, thank you so much.
Now, as Democrats scramble to find the party's next nominee, they're also worried about potential legal challenges that may arise once President Biden's replacement is chosen. Now, even though Biden wasn't the official Democratic nominee yet, you may recall we were calling him the presumptive nominee. Well, House Speaker Mike Johnson, a Republican, is arguing that each state has its own system and the candidate just can't be switched out. So here to break it down for us is NBC News legal analyst Danny Ceballos. Danny, good morning. So as we mentioned, President Biden, not the official nominee yet, but overwhelmingly won the Democratic primary. So how will replacing him work? Legally, what does this entail?
Well, the key is the word official for the most part. We have 50 states and they all have their own rules. But I think the challenge here is going to be whether or not each state allows for this substitution. And the key appears to be, the line appears to be drawn between once the candidate is the official candidate, that means after the convention, and the line before when he is the presumptive nominee, but not the actual official nominee. So, Joe, it appears to all come down to the magic word official, although in every state there are different rules. With Wisconsin is the state everybody's talking about right now. It appears to have a rule that says that the only way to substitute is if the original candidate dies.
Oh, well, that's going to be a problem. We've talked about this $96 million war chest that Harris is set to inherit from the Biden campaign since she is also on the ticket. Could anyone challenge whether her campaign automatically gets that money?
I expect there will be challenges. Whether they have a lot of legal viability is another question. And in the case of the vice president being still on the ticket, that may be a major factor in favor of Harris being able to keep the money that was raised by the Biden committee, which has already changed its name to reflect the election of Kamala Harris instead of Joe Biden. So those little strategic maneuvers may have a lot to do with why Biden endorsed Harris. In addition to believing in her, it may make a more streamlined path to them being able to keep that money that was raised by the Biden campaign and allow it to transition over. There may be less legal challenges available than if they had simply named or endorsed a brand new candidate that was not the vice president and not already on the paperwork.
So if we see any legal challenges, I guess the question is, how could that impact the election? I mean, we're less than 110 days until voters head to the polls. Election day can't move. That's staying where it is. So everything would have to happen in that window, right?
Exactly right. And I've seen firsthand some of this, mostly on the local level, but election courts have to move very quickly. It's not like in court for the rest of us where we file our papers and wait weeks and months. Election courts operate in the moment, sometimes late at night, because time is of the essence. And for that, we saw that in Bush v. Gore. Even the Supreme Court was able to mobilize within a few days to deal with something of monumental importance and an election which has deadlines. So I expect that usual question of timeline in most cases gets shortened quite a bit because of the importance. And as you've said, Joe, you're exactly right. This election isn't over because it's over. It's over because the date passes after which it must be over. It's probably a Yogi Berra-ism I just created. But the point is that it's over on a particular date rather than some other time. And that's why there is an end date, and it is a concrete one.
We're going to put that on a pillow, Danny. All right? Danny Savalos. You're like, nah. All right. Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it. We have a lot more to get to on Morning News Now, including the impact of President Biden's historic announcement on Wall Street.
We'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back. Here's what's making financial headlines. California Disney theme park workers are voting for a potential strike.
NBC's Savannah Henao has that and other money headlines. Savannah, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Christine. So workers at Disneyland have voted to authorize a potential strike as contract talks stall over wages, sick leave, and other benefits. Now, the vote was held by 4 unions representing 14,000 ride operators, store clerks, custodians, parking attendants, and other workers. The vote doesn't mean a strike will happen, just that union leaders have the option to call one if they can't negotiate a new contract. AI workers that can talk to each other will arrive by next year, according to a new report by Capgemini. The firm defines so-called AI agents as technology designed to work independently, plan, reflect, and execute complex workflows with limited human oversight. Capgemini says about 80% of the companies it surveys plan to roll out AI agents in the next few years, with the U.S. further along the path than Europe. And Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi has launched a flip phone that can print pictures instantly with a portable printer. The Mix Flip starts at $825, while the printer costs about $70, including photo paper. Xiaomi is the world's 3rd largest smartphone maker behind Samsung and Apple, but its products are not sold in the United States. So
what's old is new again. Let's print out those photos, all right?
Savannah, thank you so much. Nice to see you.
All right, let's return to our top story this morning. The withdrawal of President Biden from the presidential race, his endorsement of Vice President Harris. U.S. markets are poised to open slightly higher this morning as investors begin to digest the changing political landscape. Lucky for me, my co-anchor this morning is NBC senior business correspondent. So we keep saying this was a political earthquake.
Yeah.
Is it a Wall Street earthquake? What's happening right now with the markets?
You're seeing a little bit of advance in the futures this morning. I think you'll see stocks either steady or go up a little bit. And the reason is a big uncertainty has been taken out of it. Over the past 25 days, traders have been watching, markets have been watching and wondering if this was going to be a Biden-Trump election. And now that it looks like it will be Harris and Trump, that is taking some uncertainty out of the game. And that uncertainty is very bad for stocks.
Let's take a look ahead, because what we don't know is who's going to win this presidential race. So does Wall Street think this will happen if Trump wins versus this would happen if Harris wins?
It's so interesting because Donald Trump, when he was running for president last time, he said if Joe Biden were elected president, the stock market would crash. That hasn't happened. This return on the S&P 500 is 85% over the past 5 years. It's been remarkable, the wealth that has been added to the stock market because conditions are good for companies. So what would a second Trump administration look like? Really, economists and Wall Street think it would be very inflationary. When you talk about big tariffs on everything, that raises prices for goods and prices for everything that we pay for. And also extending big tax cuts to corporations, that could really blow out the budget, blow out deficits, which means adding an awful lot more debt and issuing a lot more bonds. So there's a lot more certainty, I think, about what a Trump administration would look like based on what he's promised than what we know what a second administration would look like for Kamala Harris. And depending on what is in Congress, of course.
And deficit reduction is not something we tend to talk about much these days.
You know, this is not your grandfather's Republican Party where they want to, cut deficits. That doesn't seem to be where they're heading right now.
All right, Christine, so glad to have you with us this morning. And of course, we'll be keeping an eye on how the markets perform today and over the weeks ahead.
All right, we are hearing the term historic and unprecedented a lot surrounding President Biden's decision to drop out of the race. To help put it in perspective is author and NBC News contributor Jonathan Alter. He's written extensively about the White House and politics, and he joins us this morning. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning, guys. How you doing?
You recently wrote a piece for the New York Times about how you think the Republican Party should move forward if Biden dropped out. You called for what you called an audition to take place rather than a coronation of the vice president. What did you mean by that? And do you still think that is the best approach, or that approach is going to happen?
No. So, we've had a political earthquake. Things change. And I think the Democratic Party had enough tumult, and they seem quite ready to unite behind Kamala Harris. I think she's going to be a very strong candidate. And we'll know how strong, really, in the next few days, because she's going to do a round of interviews. We'll see if she's rising to the occasion. The expectations for her are kind of low, which is a good situation to be in if you're a politician. People don't know that much about her. Politicians can always reinvent themselves. And yes, there are some risks to going with her as the nominee, but much smaller than going with Joe Biden. So this is a very good day for Democrats.
You love history so much. What was going through your mind yesterday when this decision came down? How do you rank this in the 21st century as far as important stories?
Extremely important, extremely unusual in American politics. The last time it happened was in 1968 when incumbent President Lyndon Johnson stepped away. I also was thinking about Joe Biden's legacy. He will be remembered as a great president. He will be mentioned in the same sentence as George Washington. Why? Because selflessly leaving power and the circumstances of him clinging to it in the last 3 weeks will be forgotten. The basic decision to leave power, which started with Cincinnatus in 439 BCE, and then George Washington picks up from Cincinnatus, and the city, of course, is named for this. Why Cincinnatus? Why is he still so well known? Because this selfless act of leaving power, which in human history is an extremely rare thing to do, elevates you. And in combination with a record of genuine achievement, it will put Joe Biden in very, very good stead in terms of history. So I was thinking partly about his legacy and partly about how when you scramble things, out of crisis can come opportunity. And so I'm not saying the Democrats are necessarily going to win this election. It could be, probably will be very close, but they have a very good chance of winning this election.
When you talk about legacy for Joe Biden, 54 years of service, but he had infrastructure, bipartisan infrastructure. He had the CHIPS Act, bringing domestic manufacturing back here. He had expanded tax cuts and child tax credits, in that very first deal that he pulled through. What will his legislative agenda and history be?
Well, I think you've summarized it. The only thing that you didn't include in that very appropriate summary is the clean energy investments.
That's right.
And these, if you think that climate change is a serious issue, which most sensible people do, and certainly Wall Street understands that it's a real issue, even though the Republican Party are basically climate change deniers at this point. If you believe it's an important issue, then Joe Biden was the most made the most significant preparations for a new climate future. And I think he'll be remembered for that. And he'll also be remembered for having dispatched Donald Trump in 2020. So historians recently got together and they do these rankings, and they ranked him at number 14 already. And he will go up from there. He's not going to go up to the top 5, but he's going to go up. And one of the reasons he was ranked so high is that he prevented a second Trump term. And of course, Trump is below James Buchanan, Andrew Johnson, Richard Nixon. He's at the very bottom. This is a consensus, not some historians. We're talking all historians who believe he is was the worst president in American history for a variety of reasons that we can discuss. But the point of it is that, you know, if Harris can win and we can put the Trump era in the rearview mirror, Biden will then go up even more in stature.
If we have the other scenario where Trump does end up winning this upcoming election, you talk about people looking at President Biden's decision to step away as this amazing decision. Will there be questions about that? Will people say, well, what if he had stayed in, then maybe, you know, it would have been a different outcome?
Well, there are always questions, but the polling was so bad that he didn't really have a path. Like the political consultants say, what's your path? And normally you can make a comeback. You can close the gap. You can be Harry Truman. There's only one situation where you can't do it, and that's age, right? Because you're not getting any younger. And I think what happened to Biden, and the reason why I don't think there'll be that much second guessing, is that he got on the wrong side of a very common American experience. Do you remember when he led the way on gay marriage when Obama was president? So, and that issue at the beginning of the 21st century, it turned almost on a dime. It went from it being a fringe issue to widespread acceptance. Why? Because everybody's got somebody gay in their family or gay friends. Same thing with age, a common experience, trying to take the keys away from your parents, wondering, is mom, dad going to be okay in 4 years? This is what Americans started to do a couple of years ago, and that's why they made a decision that they didn't want Joe Biden to run again, and they were yelling as loud as they could, and finally, after that debate, the politicians heard them and understood that this was not a smart thing to do to have him out there as a candidate. So I don't think people will say, oh, Biden could have beaten Trump. I don't think anybody's going to say that.
Jonathan Alter, so nice to see you this morning. Thank you.
Great to see you guys.
All right, coming up, we're just a few days away from the start of the Summer Olympics.
Oh, yeah, that's happening. As Team USA begins arriving in France, excitement is reaching a fever pitch. We're going to have the latest from Paris next.
All right, Olympic organizers are promising an opening ceremony like we've never seen before, with a parade along the Seine past one of the city's most treasured landmarks, the famed Notre Dame Cathedral. NBC international correspondent Kelly Cobiella got an inside look at the recently renovated cathedral 5 years after it was gutted by fire.
Guys, good morning. Well, you can see most of Notre Dame's spectacular facade from where we stand, and more of the cathedral is being revealed every day as the scaffolding comes down. And while tourists still can't go inside, we were given one last look before the grand reopening. High above the streets of Paris, a mad dash to put the finishing touches on Notre Dame's famous spire in time for the Olympic Games starting this week. Wow. We were given a rare peek underneath the spire, a hive of activity where the intricate oak frame is being perfected by hand. We're at the base of the spire, 1,000 pieces of wood carefully put together. The spire's wood base almost complete. The ancient oak ceiling rebuilt using medieval methods. The signature roof remolded, most of it now unveiled. All lead, and this part was just completed. Wow. The cathedral's famous faces, carved in stone, also coming back to life. All of this is completely new. This had to be reconstructed perfectly, carved just as it was before. This morning, even more is being revealed as France races toward the cathedral's grand reopening in December. What are people going to see
of Notre Dame when they come here for the Olympics?
They will see what we see here, the spire, the roofs, and also the north and south stone facades.
So we will see more than what we see today?
A little more, yes.
The blaze back in April 2019 was devastating. Flames reducing Notre Dame's ancient oak ceiling to ash, tearing through the interior of the church, and spectacularly toppling the spire, a cherished Paris landmark. Today, the spire, a new golden rooster, and the Iron Cross all sit atop the cathedral once again, and are also visible from these seats, ready for Friday's opening ceremony just down the river. And soon, the bells of Notre Dame. Rescued from that 2019 inferno and already tuned off-site.
They have been restored, and they will come back in the cathedral in the North Tower in September. The wound of the fire was healed. We are very happy to see all these symbols of Notre Dame in the sky of Paris.
It's taken more than 2,000 craftspeople from across France and around the world to get this far.
What do you hope people will see in December when the doors to the cathedral open again?
I think that they will see a cathedral they had never seen before.
The big reveal is a well-kept secret, but we were shown a tiny hint inside a choir chapel with 19th century frescoes and stained glass windows.
They're just stunning. They're so bright.
All hand cleaned and looking like new. The colossal restoration effort now in its final stage, a sacred space renewed.
We're told no more cameras will be allowed inside until the grand reveal December 8th. I had a good look around. The altar cross and the statues are in place, but they're covered. There's still more work to do, but none of it would have been possible, organizers say, without 340,000 donations from around the world, including 40,000 from the U.S. Guys?
Wow, Kelly Colbier, thanks so much for that story. Can't wait. And make sure to catch the opening ceremony this Friday, July 26th, streaming on NBC and Peacock.
We need that right now. That's going to do it for this hour of Morning News Now.
The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.